We see at this juncture of the episode how Lord Shiva is so jubilant on seeing the Prachetas. Being very pleased with the Prachetas' dedication to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore, willingly, Lord Shiva comes forward to offer his blessings. Lord Shiva is revealing his heart, how he respects the devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he's also making the point that for the devotees of the Lord, Lord Shiva is also very dear. Prabhupada is explaining, Srila Prabhupada explains here that the relationship of Lord Shiva with the Asuras, with those who want to relate or connect to him through his demigod portfolio or through his demigod position, seeking material favors, for them, Lord Shiva has a formal relationship. For them, Lord Shiva has a formal relationship. See, this goes to show that actually, this goes to show that how Krishna consciousness is very much linked with how we relate with other devotees. In fact, we are seeing here how Lord Shiva is so enthusiastically or so jubilantly bringing out the point that actually the devotees of the Supreme Lord are so dear to me and I am so dear to them. That means one, that's why Prabhupada is concluding the purpose that one who disrespects Lord Shiva, he cannot be a proper devotee of Lord Vishnu. Because one who is a proper devotee of Lord Vishnu will never disrespect Lord Shiva. Rather, he will respect him as Vaishnava Namita Shambhu. That is the point. So we see how much of love for Krishna is related with how we look, how we respect other Vaishnavas. So you see two devotees of the Lord, for them, I know so for a devotee of the Lord, all other devotees are very dear to him. That's the point. It is not just me and the Lord. And to highlight this point, Prabhupada is quoting the pastime of Lord Ramachandra, worshipping Lord Shiva. And then Prabhupada is making the point that if Lord Ramachandra is worshipping Lord Shiva, a devotee of the Lord, why can't other devotees worship? So a devotee should be worshipped. Rather, as much as or at the level of the Supreme Personality of God, because he is very dear to the Supreme Lord, he is dear to all other Vaishnavas as well. Idam viviktam japtavyam pavitram mangalam param nishreyasa karam chapi shruyatam tadvadami vaha. Now I shall chant one mantra which is not only transcendental, pure and auspicious, but is the best prayer for anyone who is aspiring to attain the ultimate goal of life. When I chant this mantra, please hear it carefully and attentively. The word Viviktam is very significant. No one should think of the prayers recited by Lord Shiva as being sectarian. Rather, they are very confidential, so much so that anyone desiring the ultimate prosperity or auspicious goal of life must take the instructions of Lord Shiva and pray to and glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Lord Shiva himself did. Yeah, Lord Shiva is setting the example. From his own example, he is teaching how to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Uh, and Lord Shiva is telling, please hear it very carefully and very attentively. Now, they are Lord Shiva's prayers. Now, our prayers can be a bit different. I mean, why so carefully and so attentively? The point is, when great devotees, pure devotees, when great Mahabhagavad devotees, they pour out their heart in the form of their prayers, we get to understand many essential components which are required in bhakti. What is the mood? What is the attitude? What we should ask for. That's why repeating the prayers of the Acharyas leads to all perfection. Because not only it's a great lesson for us, but also it brings about the right components of the various kinds of moods and feelings which should be there in our lives. So just by attentive hearing and attentive repetition, it triggers those particular, all those required particular moods and attitudes, and it gives us a learning lesson as well. And this is what is needed to please the Supreme Lord. Maitreya Vacha इति अनुक्रोश हृदयो भगवान् आहतान् शिवः पतञ्जलिं राजपुत्रा नारायण परो वचः. The great sage Maitreya continued, out of his causeless mercy, the exalted personality Lord Shiva, a great devotee of Lord Narayana, continued to speak to the king's sons, who were standing with folded hands. Lord Shiva voluntarily came to bless the sons of the king, as well as to do something beneficial for them. He personally chanted the mantra so that the mantra would be more powerful, and he advised that the mantra be chanted by the king's sons, the Rajaputras. When a mantra is chanted by a great devotee, the mantra becomes more powerful. Although the Hare Krishna mantra, Mahamantra, is powerful in itself. A disciple upon initiation receives the mantra from a spiritual master. For when the mantra is chanted by the spiritual master, it becomes more powerful. Lord Shiva advised the sons of the king to hear him attentively, for inattentive hearing is offensive. It's very interesting to note the point that Lord Shiva came voluntarily, he came forward to bless, and not only to bless, to do something good, beneficial, to do something good and beneficial for the Prachetas. Actually, uh, we see, so this type of attitude can only come when one genuinely feels that the Vaishnavas are his own family. So there are no formalities required. It's not that uh, there are no formalities required. It's not that the Prachetas had called for or applied to or petitioned Lord Shiva to give some uh, but seeing the sincerity in the heart of the Pracheta, Lord Shiva himself came not to bless and to help and serve them. And therefore, Lord Shiva is reciting this powerful mantra. So Prabhupada is telling, Lord Shiva is reciting the mantra becomes more powerful. The mantra becomes more powerful. Shri Rudra Vacha Gitam ta atmavidvarya swastaye swastirastu me bhavatarabhasharabham sarvasma atmane namaha. Lord Shiva addressed the Supreme Personality of Godhead with the following prayer. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, all glory is unto you. You are the most exalted of all the self-realized souls. Since you are always auspicious for the self-realized, I wish that you be auspicious for me. You are worshipable by virtue of the all-perfect instructions you give. You are the Super Soul, and therefore I offer my obeisances unto you as the Supreme Living Being. Purport: as soon as a devotee is inspired by the Lord to offer the Lord a prayer, the devotee immediately glorifies the Lord in the beginning by saying, all glory is unto you, my Lord. The Lord is glorified because he is considered to be the chief of all the self-realized souls. As said in the Vedas, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam, the Supreme Being, the personality of Godhead, is the chief living being among all the living beings. There are different kinds of individual living beings. Some of them are in this material world, some of them are in the spiritual world. Those who are in the spiritual world are known to be completely self realized because on the spiritual platform, the living entity is not forgetful of his service to the Lord. Therefore, in the spiritual world, all those who are in devotional service of the Lord are eternally fixed, for they understand the position of the Supreme Being as well as their individual constitution. Thus, amongst the self realized souls, the Lord is known as a perfectly self realized soul. Nitya Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. When the individual soul is fixed in his knowledge of the Lord as a Supreme Being, he actually becomes established in an all auspicious position. Lord Shiva prays herein that his auspicious position continue eternally by virtue of the Lord's mercy upon him. The Lord is all perfect, and the Lord instructs that one who worships him also becomes perfect. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Matta Smritir Jnanam Apohanam Cha. The Lord is situated as a super soul in everyone's heart, but he is so kind to his devotees that he gives them instructions by which they may continue to progress. When they receive instructions from the All Perfect, there is no chance of their being misled. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 10:10. Dadami buddhi yogam yena mam upayanti te. The Lord is always ready to give instructions to the pure devotee, so that the devotee can advance further and further in devotional service. Since the Lord gives instructions as Sarvatma, the super soul, Lord Shiva offers him respect with the words Sarvasva Atmane Namaha. The individual soul is called Atma, and the Lord is also called as Atma as well as Paramatma. Being situated in everyone's heart, the Lord is known as the Supreme Atma. Therefore, all obeisances are offered unto him. In this regard, one may refer to the prayers of Kunti in the first canto of Srimad Bhagwatam 1:8-20. Tatha Paramahamsanam Muninam Amalatmanam Bhakti Yoga Vijanati Katam Pasye Mahistriyah. The Lord is always ready to give instructions to the Paramhamsas or the topmost devotees of the Lord who are completely liberated from all the contaminations of the material world. The Lord always gives instructions to such exalted devotees to inform them how they can remain fixed in devotional service. Similarly, it is stated in the Atmarama verse, which is Bhagwatam 1, 7, 10. Atmaramasya munayo nirgrantha api urukrami Kuravanti ahaitukim bhaktim itham bhuta guno hari. The word Atmarama refers to those who are not interested in the material world, but are simply engaged in spiritual realization. Such realized persons are generally considered in two categories, impersonal and personal. However, impersonalists also become devotees when they are attracted by the personal transcendental qualities of the Lord. The conclusion is that Lord Shiva wanted to remain a fixed devotee of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva. As explained in the following verses, Lord Shiva never desires to merge in the existence of the Supreme Lord like the impersonalists. Rather, he thinks that it would be a good fortune for him to continue to be fixed in the understanding of the Lord as a Supreme Being. By this understanding, one realizes that all the living entities, including Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and the other demigods, are servants of the Supreme Lord. So Lord Shiva is talking about self-realized souls, and the Lord being the perfect, the most perfect of all the self-realized souls. Srila Prabhupada explains the self-realized souls is actually referring to the residents of the spiritual world because they are eternally fixed in their service to Krishna, and the Lord is the most perfect among them all. And that is where Srila Prabhupada is quoting Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. Now, Lord Shiva is praying for auspiciousness. And he's telling, oh Lord, you bestow auspiciousness to the self-realized souls. And therefore, please bestow auspiciousness upon me. So, Shiva is telling, please bestow auspiciousness upon me. So, Srila Prabhupada explains this auspiciousness again is referring to the condition of constantly remembering the Supreme Lord. And in that way, constantly serving the Supreme Lord. So, constantly remembering and serving the Supreme Lord is the state of all auspiciousness. And Lord Shiva is praying for this state of auspiciousness. Lord Shiva is not praying for just some mundane prosperity and mundane settings. He is actually praying for the, when he says that please bestow auspiciousness means that let me always remember you. Let me always go on serving you. Let me never be disconnected from you even for a moment. That is what Lord Shiva is praying for. That's why Srila Prabhupada in the purport goes ahead to Srila Prabhupada in the purport. Prabhupada is explaining that how the Lord is supremely eager to bestow instructions to the devotee. In that context, Prabhupada is quoting Kuti Devi's prayers, Tata Paraham Sana, Muninam Amalatmanam. Srila Prabhupada is quoting Atma Rama Sumunaya and Tadami Buddhi Yogam. So the point is that the Lord is very eager to give instructions to his pure devotees. How they can remain fixed? So you see, there is this beautiful and a sweet and a surge of the eagerness. The Lord is eager that the devotee remain fixed, and therefore the Lord is eager to give instructions so that the devotee becomes fixed. This is positive anxiety of the Lord. And the devotee is also very eager that he remains fixed in remembrance to Krishna and service to Krishna. So the devotee out of his Samutkantha, the devotee is offering the prayer to the Lord. So the devotee is in anxiety, the Lord is in anxiety. And this is how the sweet exchange of eagerness which goes on increasing. So the Lord is anyways wanting to help, and the devotee anyways wants to grab it. So the devotee is very much anxious about that no circumstance should come in life when he loses the remembrance of Krishna, when he loses the opportunity to serve Krishna. So the devotee doesn't want even a one moment like that. And the Lord is also equally eager, and the Lord also doesn't want one moment like that. That when the devotee and in any circumstance becomes forgetful of him, and therefore you see, so the devotee is desperately grabbing on to the Lord lotus feet, and the Lord is desperately offering the instructions. This is the beautiful loving exchange that takes place between the Lord and the devotee, and that is exactly what Lord Shiva is praying for. So amazing. That is exactly what Lord Shiva is praying for here, actually. Nama Pankajanaಭಾಯ Bhuta Sukshmendriyatmane Vasudevaya Shantaya Kutasthaya Swarochise. My Lord, you are the origin of the creation by virtue of the lotus flower. Namo Pankajanabhaya. By virtue of the lotus flower which sprouts from your navel. You are the supreme controller of the senses and the sense objects, and you are also the all-pervading Vasudeva. You are the most peaceful, and because of your self-illuminated existence, you are not disturbed by the 6 kinds of transformations. Bhuta Sukshma Indriya Atmane. So the Lord is the origin of the senses and the sense objects. The Lord is Shantaya, always peaceful. Kutasthaya, without being changed. Swarochishe, unto the supreme illumination. Purpose. The Lord as Garbhodakshai Vishnu lies in the ocean of Garbha within this universe. And from his navel, the lotus flower sprouts. Lord Brahma is generated from that lotus flower. And from Lord Brahma, the creation of this material world begins. As such, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, is the origin of the material senses and the sense objects. Now, since Lord Shiva considers himself to be one of the products of the material world, his senses are under the control of the Supreme Creator. The Supreme Lord is also known as Rishikesha, the master of the senses. which indicates that our senses and sense objects are formed by the Supreme Lord. As such, he can control our senses and out of his mercy engage them in the service of master of the senses. In the conditioned state, the living entity struggles in this material world and engages his senses for material satisfaction. However, if the living entity is engaged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is graced by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then he can engage these very senses in the service of the Lord. Our Shiva desires not to be misled by the material senses, but to engage always in the service of the Lord without being subject to the contamination by the materialistic influences. By the grace and help of Lord Vasudeva, who is all pervading, one can engage the senses in devotional service without deviation, just as the Lord acts without deviation. The words Shantaya Kutasthaya Swarochishe are very significant. Although the Lord is within this material world, he is not disturbed by the waves of material existence. However, the conditioned souls are agitated by 6 kinds of transformations. So, namely, they become agitated when they are hungry, okay, and when they are thirsty, when they are aggrieved, when they are illusioned, when they grow old, and when they are on the deathbed. Although conditioned souls become very easily illusioned by these conditions in the material world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the Super Soul Vasudeva is never agitated by these transformations. Therefore, it is said here, Kutasthaya, he is always peaceful, devoid of agitation because of his prowess, which is described herein as Swarochishe, indicating that he is illuminated by his own transcendental position. In other words, the individual soul, although within the illumination of the Supreme, sometimes fall down from that illumination because of his tiny position. And when he falls down, he enters into material conditional life. The Lord, however, is not subject to such conditioning, therefore, is described as self illuminated. Consequently, any conditioned soul within this material universe can remain completely perfect when he is under the protection of Vasudev or when he is engaged in devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada explains that the Supreme Lord is a master of the senses and the sense objects. So therefore, the Supreme Lord can actually engage the senses of the devotees in the service of, in his service. Uh, so now the question which comes here is that, okay, it is the sadhaka who is supposed to engage his senses in the service of the Lord. What does it mean that the Lord can engage the senses in in his service? The point here being highlighted is, or how not the point here being highlighted is the meaning is the Lord engaging the senses in the service of the in his own service means the Lord imparts the stability in the engagement. The engagement of the senses in the service of the Lord is triggered and initiated by the living entity, by the sadhaka, and when the Lord is pleased with that, the Lord imparts stability. That is the point which becomes highlighted here. It is the Supreme Lord who is imparting this stability uh, in terms of this engagement of the senses.